All right, hi, I'm Murtaza,
And I'm Rosa.
and you're listening to the Two and a Half Brain Cells podcast.
Alright, well, anyway, on this week's episode, we will be talking about the Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier fight, movie review about Godzilla versus Kong,
Not movie
and
review,
we're
trailer review.
alright, well, trailer review. The movie's not out yet, correction. And yeah, anything and everything else in between. So let's kick it off.
All right, so we are starting off with the McGregor Poirier fight, which honestly I was a little disappointed at. Amazing fight, but I was rooting for McGregor, and it was just the ending was just that Poirier was a better fighter that night. Good for him. He really has improved, and he is one of the best fighters in the UFC.
Yeah, I mean, I personally am not into UFC as much, but I did watch the highlights of the fight, and from what I heard about the fight, McGregor took the kicks from Poirier, and he shouldn't have, or as far as I know, and it was a TKO as well. So
Yeah, so throughout the fight, Poirier kept kicking McGregor's calf, and by the end of the fight, which was about the second round, McGregor's calf was just dead. Like he couldn't really move his leg properly, which really hindered his mobility, and because of that, Poirier had the advantage.
yeah. Also, big props to both of them. Still, I mean, as I think you were saying that McGregor was also his leg was just gone. He was like limping and had what, like a cane or something after the
Yeah,
fight?
like there's after the fight, like I think during the post-fight conference or after that, he was using a cane because, his leg's pretty much dead at that point, like, he can't use it, until he goes to see a doctor and, probably has to go through physiotherapy and whatnot.
Yeah. I see that some people were really surprised by it, and they really did think that McGregor wouldn't lose this one. Do you think he's getting rusty? What's the story here?
I don't think he's getting rusty per se, but he hadn't fought in just about a year, and the thing is, he said it himself, like, if you stay away from the fight game for too long, it's not gonna be beneficial to you, it's gonna be like, these kind
Detrimental?
of results should be expected because Poirier has been fighting, throughout the past year because the UFC has, they found ways to carry on with their events throughout the
Even
pandemic.
though the pandemic, eh? Yeah. Well, speaking of UFC, there are some big names also having their fights coming up. What are your thoughts on Mayweather versus Logan Paul? Yeah, Mayweather versus Logan Paul.
Mayweather versus Logan Paul, that is definitely an interesting one. But before I say anything, because I am a fight fan, how about you? What are your thoughts?
Well, coming from a non-fight fan and hearing the rumors, I've heard what I have heard is that Dana White came out and said that it would be pretty much pointless for the fight to happen because it's like a dad beating up his child, and that's the way that he looks at it. So he was very against the fight happening, and I believe he still is, and it's gonna be a very one-sided fight from what I'm hearing anyway.
I didn't hear Dana White saying that specifically, but I did hear him giving respect to Mayweather because Mayweather's already fought everybody that he has to fight or he had to fight, and his legacy is 50 and 0. And because of that, like it's fine whatever Mayweather fights or whoever Mayweather fights because it doesn't really affect him. Also, this isn't like an actual full fight. It's more of a
Exhibition, yeah.
exhibition, yeah.
That's what I
But
heard as well. So I feel like it's more just so Mayweather just being like, it's another easy payday. Let me just get paid again.
yeah, pretty much. It's just a payday for Mayweather. Also, people don't realize that, like, because Logan Paul, he has no professional fighting experience, and Mayweather has 50 professional fights under his belt, all of which he's won. Because the boxing game is like you hit and you step back. You're supposed to hit as much as you can without getting hit. And the best defensive fighter of all time is Floyd Mayweather.
Yeah. I believe that's how a couple. I'm not sure which UFC it was, but that's when McGregor and Mayweather fought against each other. That's how it went. People said that Mayweather shouldn't have won because McGregor was the more wild one, but I think it was a more so a case of defensive fighter won that one. Or
Yeah, but okay, so that was a super fight, Mayweather versus McGregor. That wasn't a UFC event, even though the UFC
oh,
were involved in it because of McGregor.
oh, okay.
But the thing is, like, everyone said, or not everyone, a lot of people were saying, "Oh yeah, like because of how many hits he landed, McGregor should have won that." But it's also the types of hits you land, and also you get points for properly defending. And by the end of whatever round they got to, Mayweather still had more energy, and he basically TKO'd McGregor. Because the UFC, they go maximum 5 rounds, 5 minutes each round, whereas boxing does, like, 3 to 5 minutes per round for about 10 rounds, and Mayweather is just, like, he's used to that, that is his whole career, so he kept defending himself, and he preserved his energy, and then by the end of the fight, he not only got defensive points, but then he also started striking McGregor enough that he won the fight by decision.
I see. Well, I guess that's probably why people didn't like it. It wasn't much of a showy match, but Mayweather fought to win, so to speak.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. Personally, I think that like I don't like watching Mayweather's fights because they are pretty boring. They are very defensive. That's just his style, which makes perfect sense if you're trying to win and you're trying to be the greatest. Uh, but it is pretty boring to watch.
Like no one gets knocked out right away. It's not really aggressive as much as you'd like.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, it's not like an MMA fight where they're throwing punches, kicks, they're trying to tackle you, all that stuff to try to get the fastest win.
I see. Well, last one, but what about Jake Paul's upcoming fight with McGregor? Or not upcoming, actually. He's been continuously trying to challenge McGregor, and McGregor just basically brushing him off.
In a recent interview, actually, before the Poirier fight, McGregor was asked about Jake Paul, and he pretty much brushed him off. He's like, "Oh, these internet kids are, they don't know what they're talking about." But
Mm,
Jake Paul actually, I think it was this morning, it was confirmed that he's fighting Ben Askren,
Ben Askren.
who's yeah, so he's also a mixed martial artist. He has a couple fights in the UFC. His most famous one was against Mr. Jorge Masvidal, which lasted a grand total of about 5 seconds. It's the fastest knockout in UFC history. As
And
soon as the fight started, Masvidal threw a flying knee, which landed and connected with Ben Askren's forehead, and
and it
he
was a
knocked.
knockout.
Yeah,
Damn. And that's the fastest knockout in history. Damn.
in UFC history, yeah, it lasted like 4 or 5 seconds, the whole fight.
People probably were really disappointed then.
No, 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 no. This was before 2020, and so they had a full live arena and everything. But the thing is, it was just such a historic fight that if you didn't watch it, or if you were there, even if you were rooting against Jorge Masvidal, it's just like being there for that historic moment. It's just like you can't be disappointed at that.
Unprecedented. Must have.
Who do you think is gonna win the Ben Askren Jake Paul fight?
Well, I don't know much about Ben Askren, but personally, all of the YouTube fights have happened. I've always seen Jake always got like second fiddle, so Logan's the bigger one. Well, the bigger brother, I believe. So obviously he would get the bigger fights. Jake Paul has been kind of left in like the shadows, or so to speak. So he's been kind of going under the radar. I really want to see him being challenged by someone. So I'm hoping that Ben Askren either he knocks him out and he moves up, and then he goes on to fight bigger and better people, or he loses, and then he decides to take a complete different direction, like Logan has done. Logan, I think he after he lost to KSI both times, now he's challenging Mayweather, obviously, but it caused him to get like a different perspective on life. Before but that, my point being, I'm interested to see who Jake Paul and how I'm interested to see how Jake Paul does and to see if he knocks him out. I don't know too much about Ben Askren, so I can't comment on his form. He's not really as famous as well, the ones you mentioned before, McGregor or Mayweather. So yeah,
Honestly, though, I don't like the odds of this fight. I definitely want to see Jake Paul lose, but I also don't think that's necessarily going to happen until like the end of the 8 rounds that they're fighting, because Ben Askren historically is not a great striker. He's great at wrestling, but that means nothing when it comes to boxing.
I see. Well, I guess we can move on from the UFC now. Let's go into um some other topics I've been meaning to talk about. Let's go into the trailer review actually. So Godzilla versus Kong. Let's see this one more time. You can kick us off.
Godzilla versus Kong is an upcoming movie by Warner Bros.
The
Hashtag
last one
not
was released
sponsored.
in 2019, which was Godzilla, the King of the
King of the
Monsters,
Monsters. Yep.
right? So this one's coming out on March 26th.
It's coming out in theaters and on HBO Max, which we don't get up here in Canada.
Yep. Once again, Canada plays second fiddle.
Yep. Yeah. But it's looking like a good trailer. I do have a couple of gripes with it, namely that they upsized King Kong to be the exact same size as Godzilla.
Which is not the case, right? He's supposed to be smaller.
Yeah, like the original King Kong story and even the retellings is like he's on the Empire State Building,
Yeah,
right?
and he's not nearly as big as the Empire State Building. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's like on the top. He's so if he were to be the size of Godzilla, he's pretty much now like 10 times as big as he was before.
Seems kind of ridiculous, yeah. It looks as if he's much taller.
Yeah, he looks much bigger because they showed a scene in the trailer where it's Godzilla in a packed city, which to me it looks like Tokyo at night, um, which would make sense. But then it also shows at one scene like Godzilla versus Kong. They're just like face to face, and King Kong's throwing punches and stuff, and they're the same size.
Yeah, but I guess that's just because of like matchup reasons. Like it would be too unfair for God Godzilla to be like that big and King Kong to just be like a little like ideally just a gorilla size if you look in comparison.
Yeah, I guess, but like they're not supposed to be I don't know, King Kong just doesn't seem right to me. I feel like if they made him smaller or made him his original size and then they found a way to like make him still end up fighting Godzilla, he could still have some sort of a chance if he was smart about it. Because in this universe, like it's connected to Godzilla King of the Monsters, and there's a whole bunch of monsters, like, there's the Kraken, there's, like, the pterodactyl and stuff. I don't know what that one's called, but there's, like, a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. But my question is, do you think Godzilla is clearly the villain here, or can they spin it a different way? What if Godzilla is the one trying to? Well, from the trailer, obviously, it looks as if he's just destroying stuff, and King Kong is supposed to be the protagonist, where he actually saves the
Mm,
people and whatnot. But what are your
yeah,
thoughts on the
um,
roles?
in the trailer, they do point it, or they do make it sound like Godzilla is the villain and he's going on a rampage and just destroying stuff, and they say, "Oh, yeah, like, we need King Kong to help us, or we need King Kong to fight Godzilla." But
Yeah.
the issue is historically, Godzilla has not really been evil.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm a huge fan of, like, the old Godzilla movies, like the '70s Japanese movies and stuff. I used to, like, bring them home all the time as a kid from the library and just watch them with subtitles on,
Oh, I see.
and historically, Godzilla is not a villain.
So he's more so of a character, but what is he trying to prove? Is my question. If he was not the villain in those old movies,
In this one, we don't know, it could just be, like, another war between monsters, which is what I think is gonna happen, either that or somebody or something is trying to mess with, like, the balance of things, and Godzilla is going on a rampage to stop that entity.
yeah, mm, it might be very much so the case. My concerns more so lie with the fact that the origin story. I haven't watched the previous one, so maybe that explains a lot better as to what Godzilla is and if he's good or not. Because yeah, from these pictures, it looks as if he used to be a peaceful creature, and they basically just use this as context to make him like a villain versus protagonist type of
Hero.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
Who do you
Well,
think
quickly moving on.
realistically wait, before
Yeah.
we move on, realistically, who do you think would win? If they were
Well,
to I don't think they're gonna kill off either of the 2, but if there was to be, like, a death match between Godzilla and King Kong, who do you think would win?
I mean, to be honest, all factors considered, I would probably say Godzilla if he was just smart about it. The way that the trailer paints him out to be, more so is just like, oh, he's a Godzilla appears to just like not intelligently, but just like destroy and like shoot beams out of his mouth, like fire or like laser, not laser beams, but like plasma or something. But if he, and then obviously the trailer shows that King Kong is a bit more intelligent. He tries to use tools, learns how to fight a little bit better, and then appears to be able to defeat him later. But
I wanna
my
see how they
point being,
explain the staff.
yeah, that part at towards the end of the trailer is a bit confusing. So that's probably going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I would probably say Godzilla would win if he was a bit smarter about it. But it appears as if they're not going to show that in the upcoming movie, and it's just going to be King Kong beating him. Unless there's like a plot twist at the very end where like Godzilla comes out of nowhere and is still alive or something, and then everyone
Hopefully.
dies, and then yeah, who knows?
Because I remember, like, near the end of the last movie, he was just, like, full of radiation and, like, he was walking places and everything was just melting around him.
Well, moving on from that, what else are your thoughts on just the past few weeks in general? January is going by pretty quickly. It's almost February. March is upcoming. It's going to be a year of lockdown.
It's gonna be
What
a
are your
year of
thoughts?
lockdown in March, yeah. Hey, I had a
Yeah.
question
What?
for you.
Yeah.
Can February March?
Oh God, not these puns
No,
again.
but April, May.
Oh God, why do you do this to me? These corny jokes, damn it. Well, anyway, just not really a topic, but I could talk a little bit briefly about some developments in European football. So I follow European football a lot, as the audience may or may not know. I'm a big. I'm not plastic. I'm a Man City fan, so don't attack me in the comments. Or
What's plastic?
so people claim that okay, so plastic basically means you're fake. So you follow a team because they're just really good all of a sudden. And no, I haven't followed the team just because they're really good. I've been a fan since 2012, pretty much. So this was just around the time when they got taken over by Saudi Arabian money, so oil money basically. But anyway, point aside, that's not what I want to talk about. So Chelsea Football Club, which is a club which plays in England, the
Mhm.
European
Yep,
Premier League.
yep. From
So
They're based out of Chelsea, I assume?
No, so Chelsea is the name of the football club, and they're based out of London. And there's about 4 to 5 teams that are in London. So you have
FC
Chelsea,
football.
you have Tottenham FC, you have Arsenal FC, so AFC. Anyway,
Nice.
point yeah. So point being here is I want to talk more so on Chelsea. So yeah, so Chelsea have just sacked their manager just yesterday. So this guy was a club legend. He was there at the club when this famous manager named Jose Mourinho. If people follow along, you'll know what I mean. But if you don't, okay.
Wait, wasn't Mourinho also a soccer player himself?
So Mourinho played briefly for Porto, and I believe he didn't play for Barcelona, but he was really good friends. He ended up at Barcelona as an assistant or something, and he made friends with Pep Guardiola. But I don't want to get too much into Mourinho's past. Basically, Mourinho was a manager when Lampard used to play, and they won a couple of premierships. So he's a club legend. He was a midfielder, so he wasn't even a striker. One of the most prolific midfielders of probably his era, but he was sacked yesterday because after his first season, he invested heavily in the team. So they spent over like 200 mil. They broke their transfer record and they brought in a player, a very good player. His name is Kai Havertz. He was very much so in demand, but he wasn't able to get the best out of him. So he sort of just benched him in the end. So they've sacked him because of poor results, and they find themselves ninth in the table when they were just like second or third, like literally back in December they were second and third, but they've lost and drawn the past few games, and it's not looking good. So and the way the table is right now, so typically there's usually past few seasons there's been a team that's been leading, and then there's a
Okay.
big gap between the rest. Or in basic to for lack of a better term, there'd be two top teams, which would be Man City and Liverpool. Those have been the favorites the past few years. But this season, because of COVID, everything has just like fallen off. They had like a mid-season break because COVID broke out of nowhere back in March. They've just not good. People have found it hard to find the flow of things because there's no fans, first of all, and even if there are fans, they're limited, like very very limited. I think they had fans a few weeks ago in football, but now London is once again, the entire UK is in lockdown again. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
but
they're in like stage 4 lockdown, right? Like similar to us.
yeah, no, they're also just like only go out for exercise if you need to. Don't meet your friends. Don't go for work, etc., etc. I mean, obviously go for
Okay,
work,
go
but
for
like
work. Yeah.
yeah. But my point being, basically, they sacked Frank Lampard and they brought in another famous coach. His name is Thomas Tuchel. Now his CV is immaculate. I've wanted to see him in the Premier League for a very, very long time. Basically, I followed the Premier League religiously. I don't really watch many of the other leagues because the commentary is in English. I just prefer English commentary over like Spanish or French. I can't understand. So yeah. But so Thomas Tuchel is now in the Premiership. He's now going to take charge of Chelsea. Fun fact: he was before just a few weeks ago. He was sacked from his job at PSG, Paris Saint Germain, which is a pretty famous club that most people know about. So they have likes of like Mbappe, Neymar, a bunch of Manchester United players got signed to PSG. So yeah, it's a good club. He was sacked. He's now at Chelsea, and I'm excited to see how he gets on. And yeah, sorry for the big ramble. I'm
Do
pretty
you
sure
think they're
you're bored.
gonna Yeah, no worries. Do you think they're gonna do better this season?
So Tuchel's very much so he's gonna do well with this team because I believe because of two reasons. He's a manager and his playing style, it's very similar to actually no, I can't draw similarities. He might be no. Okay, no, never mind. Not similar. Mainly one reason. He needs to get the way he gets the best out of his players is that everyone buys into his mentality and like plays the way that he want to play. He wasn't good at PSG because what ended up happening was that the players over there, they have a lot of egos there. So egos as in like you have Neymar and Mbappe, they get paid like literally over 200 grand a week. They're literally set. They're more prolific and they're paid that much because they're that good. They're literally that good. Like they can go into any European top team in the world and they will instantly just make them contenders for like either whatever trophy, home trophy or the Champions League, he wasn't able to deal with their egos, meaning that the players wanted to do whatever they wanted on the pitch, and whatever it's the manager's job to implement tactics and make sure the team plays a certain way. But then you have certain individuals in the team who want to play their own way and express themselves. Sometimes you let that happen, but sometimes it's detrimental to the team because they hog the ball or they don't pass when they're supposed to, and they just try to get as many goals as possible. They think they're the star of the team, right? Because they are, respectively. He didn't do good because of that. Chelsea's a different scenario. Now, Chelsea's a team in transition. They don't really have any big names. Well, I believe they do have one or two, but those two are they were just brought into the club. They're not really familiar with the English Premier League as it is, and they were the signings of the previous manager. Now, the reason I believe they also got him in is because he is German. Two of the star-studded players they just signed were Kai Havertz from Bayer Leverkusen and Timo Werner from RB Leipzig, which are both German teams in the Bundesliga, or the Bundesliga, as they like to call it in Germany. I believe that's why they got him in. I'm really excited to see how he does, and I believe that German connection can go a long way.
Nice. Hopefully, hopefully your team does well.
It's not really
And
my
the other
team.
team
Yeah, I'm just
and
excited
the
to
other
see how they
teams do
do.
not so well.
Yeah, no, I'm just excited to see how they do overall. I'm always excited because the Premier League is like European football, especially, is an endless cog. If you don't do well, and if you're a top European team, you're out the door pretty quickly because they expect results, right? They expect trophies. They expect you to be competitive at least. So it's going to be interesting to see. My team's doing pretty well. We have a game in hand, and if we win this game in hand, I think they're playing today actually, as of January the 26th. They should be playing at 3:15, I believe. They're playing West Brom. Now, if we win this game, we will go top of the Premiership. Now, obviously, this is very much so just jinxing my entire team. So if I just jinx them, rip to me. But we're just 2 points behind of Manchester United, of all people. But we'll leave that conversation for another day.
Sounds good.
Yeah. What about you? Anything interesting in your life that you want to talk about before we call it a day?
No, nothing really. I would live in a pretty boring life.
Yeah, my life's pretty boring too, to
Just a
be
day to
honest.
day.
Yeah, take it one day at a time.
I think I got out most of my stuff in like the fighting portion of this episode.
Yeah, that's more of your jazz, I would assume. Yeah, don't talk football. I can talk for hours. I've watched a lot of it over the past 6 years. Yes, 6, 7 years.
Yeah, so just like
Yeah.
you religiously follow European football, I follow the UFC, and I just want to end with like I'm really hoping that the Diaz brothers come back for fights this year. I don't know if you know them, but like Nate Diaz, you probably know Nate Diaz, right?
I do not. No.
Okay, Nate Diaz, one of the greatest fighters. He's the one that handed Connor his first loss in the UFC.
Oh shoot.
Uh, and then his older brother, Nick Diaz, he hasn't fought since 2015 or 2016. And he was given like a 5-year suspension for marijuana usage, which it has expired now, but also they changed the rules that marijuana doesn't count as a banned substance now because it's not a performance enhancer.
Yeah, it shouldn't be. That's kind of weird how they banned him because I think marijuana is just more so you get a little bit of you get more relaxed, if anything. Yeah.
Yeah, but hopefully he comes back. That's where I'm gonna leave that. Just hopes and dreams.
Yeah. That's the way we like to have it. Anyway, so anything else?
No, that's about it. Let us know let us know online who you think is gonna win, or who you think would win between Godzilla and King Kong.
Yep. And please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We are now on there. And you can leave us a review, give us any feedback you may have. Other than that, we also tweet us on Twitter at 2HBC Pod. Instagram, I believe we also have one. No?
Yep, at 2HBC Pod.
2HBC Pod as well at Instagram and at Twitter at 2HBC Pod. Email us at 2hbcpod@gmail.com if for any inquiries that you may have, any feedback, or even, hey, you want to sponsor us, get that going. That's where you can reach us. And we will see you all next week.
We will see you all next week. We upload every Thursday. On the Thursday, you can find all of our links at linktr.ee/2hbcpod. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and have a great day.
Bye, everyone.